All right. Hello. I hope everyone had a really, really awesome Thanksgiving. Since the last time I streamed was Wednesday of last week. We took Thursday off for Thanksgiving. And trying something a little different here. I usually have 2 key lights going, but I think my monitors illuminate me well enough. Let's see if I can get that back in focus. That I'm gonna try to not blind myself with I have 4 monitors here, so the key lights are like another 2. I don't know that I need it, and the top monitor is illuminating me quite a bit right now since it's just like white coming down on me. So yeah, we have well, let me introduce. Your host is Oberon. I'm the assistant host, Everclear. And today I am thinking about going over... Actually, I'm not thinking about... I'm going to go over a lot of books that I have read over the past 15 years now as I was working on self-development, trying to figure out, like, just why I couldn't get my shit together, trying to figure out my mind, why I did certain things, just the ones that I really thought helped the most, and are all of these books, I've taken something from them that I've built my own personal foundation on when I kind of rebuilt who I was a few years ago. Not so much personality, although a little bit, but more of like a life philosophy and beliefs and stories and everything like that, because it was really rotten prior to that. My life fell apart. So although I read a lot of these books and I would try to incorporate things, it wasn't until a few years ago that I took it really seriously and kind of looked and was like, what are all the things I've learned that I think make a lot of sense to try to build a new me to where I never hit rock bottom again, right? By the way, I'm gonna buy a new fucking camera. That's hopefully happening this week. Right now I use a Logitech Brio, which I thought would be decent enough, and when it's in focus it's not terrible, but I'm gonna upgrade to a Sony mirrorless. That's gonna be a nice big purchase to hit the bank account this week, but hopefully that'll happen in a few days. Hopefully next week I can get that set up. I'm tired of this going out of focus. It's just not good enough. And hopefully we could see Oprah a little more clearly, since I know that's why half of you are here anyway. You tell me about it. Anyway, the books, you know, as I really sat there kind of at ground zero. See, I know. As I sat there at really ground zero kind of looking, it was like, what are all the things I did wrong, right? And so I kind of want to preface before I even get into the books, because I was thinking about this, and once in a great while, not recently, not from anyone who's watched this stream, but I have at certain points been accused of blaming victims because I said they take some responsibility, right? And that's not really what I'm doing. If you were a child who was abused, you were like 5 and something happened, like, I'm certainly not suggesting that you were responsible for what happened to you. That would be absolutely insane. It's not your fault. However, you are now still responsible to try to fix it. And the other thing is, although what happened to you back then might have traumatized you and caused you to have certain negative beliefs, stories, so on and so forth, which then inform your thoughts, you are still responsible, unfortunately, even if you have bad programming, for the things you are doing as an adult, and it's your responsibility to try to fix yourself and change them. We can't just say, well, this person had a shitty childhood, so they're excused from anything they ever do as an adult. We might go, oh, that's a reason. We can understand where that came from. We can try to be empathetic. We can try to be helpful if the person wants to be helped or is searching or trying or something and they're just not there yet. If they don't even want help, you can't force someone to get helped, unfortunately. But assuming they do, we can certainly be empathetic and try to help and all that kind of stuff. But we can't just say, well, none of it's their fault. That's just not true. And when I really saw that basically despite doing all this, despite reading all this shit for 15 years, that my life truly fell apart, of course there's a bit of, well, this was done to me. You can blame God a little bit. You can blame, I've talked about being betrayed by my ex-wife. You could blame her, and she certainly had some blame. But the thing is, if you're really being honest, with yourself, you can look at, let's say, a part of it, right? Because you can't go, well, how did I get here, right? There's like many, well, you can say, how did I get here? But you can't just go as like a whole, how did I get here? You start there and then you start breaking it down very quickly and go, okay, this was a choice that contributed. And you trace it back and you usually eventually find that you made a choice, even if it was a choice made out of fear, out of misinformation, out of whatever else, that was not a good choice to make. And I'll say it as like, typically it's not the choices you make where you were just incorrect because you didn't have all the information and it was like you maybe a friend didn't tell you everything about something and so you went and did something, and then had you known the full story, you wouldn't have done that, right? But you didn't have any. It was an honest mistake. It was an honest, I didn't know that, and so I fucked up, and now I've learned, right? On the other hand, there are the things that you know are wrong, or that you know aren't right, but you hope, but it's like fear or something else drove you to do that. And when I really looked, I felt that although maybe the punishment was pretty fucking brutal, I couldn't deny. Let me put it this way. I thought the punishment was brutal to have it all happen all at once. Like, it just all kind of came down, right? But I couldn't really deny that it might have been the sum total that I deserved karmically from many little bad decisions, in the past. And I'm not even saying that my decisions necessarily hurt other people besides myself in the past. It was just, it all came back and punched me in the face and laid me out, and I just absolutely was down for the count. I think if you are really trying to get your shit together, fix things, as much as I've talked about forgiveness and using that in overcoming trauma, and you know, the need to like let go, and you have to ultimately forgive yourself too. The reason you have to ultimately forgive yourself is because you often play a huge part in many of the decisions in your life. And if you are at rock bottom, that is something to investigate. Look at, how did I have a hand in creating this situation? How is it possible that I am not just a complete victim of circumstance? I'm not saying that people aren't victims of circumstance. I'm not saying that every single thing is their fault. I'm also saying it's not everyone else's fault but your own. And typically, you have a lot more responsibility because you made bad choices. If you really trace it back, it's like, okay, well, this happened. Well, why'd this happen? Well, because of this. Well, because of this. Because of this. Because of this. And you might go back 10 years, but you'll arrive at a point where it was like, I made a decision out of fear or out of greed or out of envy, out of hate, out of anger, out of not truth and love. Let's say. Let's just sum it up in big terms, where maybe you lied, maybe you cheated a little bit, maybe you did something, and eventually it comes back around. And I don't feel that from what I've seen at this point, and just from listening to other people too, because I remember at one point I was debating with someone who was my life coach at the time, because I was like, I'm trying to be a good person, I'm trying to do all the right things, but I'm like getting shit on, you know, and that was the wrong way to look at it, because I was still making bad choices out of fear or something like that, rather than maybe better reasons. There's like a million wrong ways or reasons, and there's like very few right and good reasons to do something. Like, the path is very straight and narrow, if we're being really honest. And I kind of said, why shouldn't I just stop being decent? Because, like, look at these dudes on Wall Street who are like, you know, just absolutely fucking screwing the country over. And this person, the coach I was working with at the time, who I do have a decent amount of respect for, unfortunately, his morality was so triggered that he couldn't stay rational in debating this with me. Because I was looking for someone to, you know, just... He's just like, you can't be like that. You just can't. Oh, so you're just gonna be an asshole? Like, it really struck me. I was like, no, you know, and I had to like coach him down, which wasn't awesome. It wasn't until later on that I really recognized, just because we see stuff on the surface doesn't mean that everything's okay. You know, people who screw others over financially, they might have money, but that doesn't mean that they're not paying for it in many other ways. Probably in ways that the money is all they can do to... It is like they need that just to keep going, You know, like maybe so many other things in their lives are so bad that they are just making all this money and then using it on whatever distraction or drug or whatever else to live with themselves. So I'm not saying like we should let those people off the hook, and I'm not saying everyone on Wall Street is a crook, and I'm not saying any of that kind of stuff. What I am saying is no one really seems to get away with anything, and that is the ultimate reason why you don't go make bad choices, because you know at the end of the day it's wrong. You know you are just you're dragging yourself down by making those choices. Like maybe your ego doesn't think that, but you likely are wrestling and struggling inside pretty hard. And you might have even convinced yourself you don't care, but then karma still comes back around and usually lays you out pretty hard. I haven't really seen any evidence that that's not totally true or the case when you really investigate even the people who seem to have it all. There are people, just because you have a lot of money doesn't mean you are like that. You know, I don't really think Warren Buffett is a bad dude. He has earned his money pretty honestly. I don't think any of the companies he owns has a terrible reputation. Of course, major companies will have something that happened. You know, a middle manager who sexually harassed a worker or something, or a customer who got screwed over because someone dropped the ball or something like that. When you're talking about companies that make billions of dollars with thousands or tens of thousands of employees, you can't hold the person who owns the company at the very top, who's so detached from those things, totally responsible. That just wouldn't be fair or right. So, you know, again, I'm not saying everyone's a crook, but what I am saying is that I really do think karma exists. And in the sense, even if it's not a cosmic sense, it's just the sense that it seems to be the case where, again, what you put out is what you get back. So if you cheat, you're going to get cheated. Not that I ever cheated on anyone, but it's not an exact one-for-one thing like that, but on some spiritual level, I think it all kind of evens out. Just the punishment might not be, you know, something done to you where as if you did the same crime, but the level might be something like that. So what I'm suggesting is that if you find yourself in a bad place, try to at least investigate what some of the things you might have done to put yourself there. And then perhaps there are things in these books that you could read about and try to install into your own personal operating system or philosophy or belief system or something that you could swap out wherever like, let's say you did something wrong and it was born out of a bad belief. Let's see if we can upgrade that software and change that belief or evolve it or take it to version 2.0 so it's better informed, so that you're not doing stupid shit that eventually comes back around and punches you in the face. That's why we should be reading nonfiction. If we really care, if you actually watch this channel because something's not right, then you should probably really care about fixing stuff in your life so that it's not so bad, at a minimum. Maybe even good, possibly great. I mean, ideally we'd get to a baseline of decent minimum, you know, so if it's not good, then, you know, I do think overcoming trauma and grief is usually a big part for the vast majority of people, but in the meantime, you can still look and go, well, how is that trauma and grief making me make dumb decisions? And although ultimately I want to stop fighting with myself, I could, and that will be a big part of my journey, maybe, is to forgive, let go, and all that kind of stuff. Maybe there's information out there that I don't know that could be better if I adopted it. So, with that introduction out of the way, that's why I think what I'm about to do is actually important. I don't want to just say, oh, I thought this book was fucking awesome. You know, it really made me think about things different ways. Well, so what? What really matters is if I took something away from it and grew from it. Did I stop doing stupid shit as much after it? Did my life get better after it? And I think all these books had a part in that, ultimately. Again, for me, it was just one big, like, everything fell apart, so I really had to spend a few years looking at and thinking about all the things I learned and kind of building a new philosophy from the ground up, which I think is working out pretty well, if I'm being honest. So yeah, I'm going to dive in. One thing I will say is for the past 2 days, something happened where my glands and like my uvula, the little hangy ball thing, was so swollen when I woke up in the middle of the night. Not last night, but 2 nights ago. My throat is still really sore, kind of swollen and stuff. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't think it's COVID because that's not a symptom. But I'm going to try to fight through this as well as tomorrow's stream and Thursday's stream, but I might have to drink some water along the way. So, let's dive in. I wish I had arranged this so that, like I said, I was gonna on one of the streams last week where I was gonna put this stuff on the main monitor, but I didn't get to it because it was Thanksgiving weekend and I had a lot of shit to do. Including working on this stream. I just didn't get to that thing. But I did work pretty much every day of the vacation, aside from Thursday itself. So if any of you are thinking about being an entrepreneur and you've never tried it before, you better be willing to fucking grind on weekends, even holiday weekends, to get shit done. This book, The Surrender Experiment by Michael A. Singer, is so interesting. This guy wrote another book as well. I think he might have more than just these two, but he also wrote a book called The Untethered Soul. The Untethered Soul is really good if you're looking more for the how-to of what he is talking about, I believe. I haven't actually gotten that far through this one. I read The Surrender Experiment first. I did read this book from beginning to end, and not every book that I'm going to talk about have I done that. I think basically everyone I'm going to talk about today, I have done that with, or at least I got, super close and I got the gist of it. Some others I just took a few big ideas and I noticed the rest of the book was filler and I just got bored halfway through, but like those few big ideas in the beginning were still worth it. It probably didn't require an entire book but the author, needs to make money off their idea. But this book, The Surrender Experiment, did actually capture me because this guy's life is so interesting, and it's all because of how he chose to live his life. If you are into Buddhism, you are going to love this book. If you're someone who's into meditation, mindfulness, just any kind of Eastern philosophy or thought in that regard, this is a book that you should probably buy and check out, and I think you would enjoy it. You can see here what this guy did. The astonishing true life story about what happens when you just let go. A thriving spiritual community on over 600 acres of pristine forest and meadows in Florida. A cutting-edge software package that transformed the medical practice management industry. A billion-dollar public company whose achievements are archived in the Smithsonian. A book that became a New York Times bestseller. That's the other one. And a raid by the FBI and a major lawsuit, which when that part came along in the book, I was stunned. Because up until then, he had been saying, like, well, all this is totally working out for me. And, that didn't totally work out for him. Although in the end, it was okay. It shows that life is a journey, and just because you live a certain way doesn't mean that everything is going to work out fine. But if you adhere to a certain philosophy and, kind of staying true, even though you might be going through hard times, that will carry you through, and you'll get out on the other side okay, generally speaking. Not all the time. There's plenty of instances in history where that was not the case. Socrates comes to mind as a strong example of that. Socrates, for those who don't know, the one thing about Socrates is he always listened to what he called his daemon, which would be what we might call like the conscious or subconscious, or basically the thing that's like kind of telling you what to do before the ego and all your fears and all this other shit gets in the way. It's like if someone said, if your subconscious is like, walk over there and get naked, your ego would probably get in the way and be like, nah, I don't really want to do that because like people are going to look and cops might be called and all that kind of shit. But like Socrates listened to this no matter what, right? And he was pissing people off back in the day. And they put him on trial, but they said, like, we're going to set this trial 6 months out in advance. And they were basically giving him the opportunity to just walk away and leave. And it's like, because, like, they didn't really want to kill the dude. It was just like, yeah, your trial's going to be in 6 months. So, if you just packed up and left, then you'd just be gone, right? And you couldn't be here for your trial, and you'd be gone. You'd be living somewhere else, and like whatever, and he's an old guy at this point anyway. It's like you could go retire in the country. Just get the fuck out of here because you're pissing everyone who runs this city off. And his daemon was like, don't go, don't run. And that's a big struggle because it's like he's sitting there like, but I'm gonna die if I stay. Okay. So he stayed. If you really look into it, we still remember him and his trial today for a reason, right? Had he not stayed, that would not have gone down in history. He was sentenced to death. He did die, and some of the shit that came out of it was prolific and still serves humanity. So you might say it didn't work out for him, but maybe it worked out in general because he had lived a good life up until that point. I don't know. A lot of people watching this might be like, yeah, but he died. And I don't totally disagree, but this guy, Michael Singer, basically is doing the exact same thing. What led him there was he was chilling on a couch, like watching TV or something, and like there's the part of your brain that just doesn't like shut the fuck up, kind of like the ego, the thing that's throwing out like all the fears and always trying to think about other things and all that kind of stuff, and it's just like incessantly talking at you, right? And he realized this one day. He's like, what is that voice that just doesn't shut the fuck up? And he became obsessed with figuring this out and not listening to the voice because it just wouldn't stop going. He got into mindfulness and meditation, of course, because of this. And his entire life has kind of been a mission to not listen to the annoying voice and go with what his, let's say, soul or true self or whatever you want to describe it. Some might say what God is saying to do, like essentially whatever that deeper voice is that's telling you like the right path to go. Because there's a you that gets to decide if you want to listen to it or not. And so his mission has been to shut up the other voice and listen to that voice that's, we'll say the heart voice if you want. Some people describe it as that, like your soul, and not the voice in your head that's like all your fears, your doubts, the bullshit that's getting in the way. So interestingly, it just became a thing where it's amazing the adventure and journey that life will take you on when you do this. When you don't let fears like stop you from doing things that are being suggested to you, when you just I'm not saying it's always comfortable. I would say that generally speaking, this is something that I am trying to adopt. I mean, it's a journey, it's a practice. I wouldn't say it's perfect by any means. I think for the most part I tell the truth. Actually, I know for the most part I tell the truth. About 1 year ago, I'm just a month shy of 2 years now. Sorry, not about 1 year, about 2 years ago. At the beginning of 2020, I took a vow, actually a little bit before then. It was in 2019. So it might be at 2 years now. I took a vow that I wasn't going to lie, cheat, or steal. There are some exceptions. The one I often use is if I'm hiding Jews in World War II in my house and a Nazi officer walks up and goes, "Are there Jews in there?" I'm going to say no. That's the correct answer. Doesn't matter that it's a lie. Short of stuff like that and a few other things, I don't lie. There is one lie I've said since then. And it pisses me off, and most of you watching will be like, "You're being ridiculous." And it's like, no, I'm not, because I take this so seriously that even this pisses me off. I had seen Hamilton, which was in town with my family one weekend, and I was giving blood a few days later, like a donation or whatever, and I'm chatting with the person jabbing me with the needles, and they were like, "What'd you do over the weekend?" I went to Hamilton, and they said, "Oh, did you know that's on like Disney Plus or whatever now?" And I just wasn't thinking, and I said no. And I caught myself a few seconds later and realized a friend told me that like the week before, and so I did know it. And my lack of thoughtfulness and just answering in the moment and not thinking about what I was saying led me to say something was untrue. And I was very hard on myself for this. Like, amazingly hard. If you take a vow to do something and you don't, you should be incredibly hard on yourself for even a slip up like that, because like that's the level of seriousness I take living this kind of way, where I am truthful in my speech and also trying to be truthful to what that voice is telling me to do. And I will be honest, this came to a head a few months ago, prior to starting this stream and everything. I had been coaching people and moving in that direction over the past year, and but I was going slow with it, and I was still doing a lot of web design and internet marketing work, and I still do a little bit here and there, but I was trying to continue going down that path, even though I knew I should be doing this. But on paper, it wasn't making a lot of sense, because I'm like, okay, this is going to take a while to get started. Takes a little while to build up an audience, takes a little while to build up clientele. I need to keep making money, so what I'll do is I'll just keep doing this web design stuff for a little while, like 6 to 10 months, make the money I need, and then I'll take this more seriously. And so I started advertising myself on Facebook, doing all the things that I needed to do. I spent a few weeks like preparing to advertise and build up new business and everything, because I need to get some new clients. And that was the other thing, like I needed to get new clients. It wasn't like I had a few months still of clientele, but I was just kind of far out. Like it was like, no, I really need to build up some clients and make some money. And I started doing it. I felt so disgusted with myself that I don't want to say I nearly had like a mental breakdown, but I was having a crisis. This also happened at the same time that something else happened in my personal life that kind of shook me up significantly. But this was something that, in a Socrates-like moment, although my life wasn't hanging in the balance, I had to sit there and wrestle with it, because like I'm looking and I know that if I go try to get clients, I can make a lot of money. I charge a significant amount. I've been a web designer close to 25 years. I've done internet marketing since I was 20, so I have nearly 2 decades of experience in the marketing side of things. I don't charge $500 for a website, is what I'm saying. I charge a significant amount for websites. As a consultant, I am pretty fucking good at making other people money online. And needless to say, though, it's like, okay, I'm feeling disgusted with myself. I know I'm lying. I know I'm not listening to that voice, but I need like, there's a reality to this situation. And I'm kind of sitting there, and I mean, I am religious and believe in God, and I'm like, really, God? Like, because I need to make money. It's like, your job is to go do the coaching thing. As soon as I let go and gave in and stopped trying to do it my way, which is funny because again, going back to 2019, as I was kind of firming up my life philosophy, I was like, I looked at how my life had fallen apart, and I realized that my way was just not working out. And I don't think I had read this. I think I was reading this book, and this is kind of this. It was the right time, right, to be reading this book. And I kind of was like, okay, I'm going to stop doing it my way. I'm going to start listening to that voice in the back of my head. Well, I then was tested a few months ago, because it was like, very clearly I was trying to do it my way again, and it was not working out. And not only was I not getting clients, and no one was coming my way, I was feeling disgusted. Like, I could tell I was wrong. I was wrong for doing it because I said I was going to do that shit. I could tell my internal compass was like, you were doing the wrong thing. And I'm like, yeah, but I need money. It's like, no, you're doing the wrong thing. Needless to say, I changed course. Very soon after, I did get a web design client that fell into my lap. That was... He's a wonderful client. It's a fun project. There's not a lot of big expectations or anything like that. It's been really great. That was significant and allowed me to the time and space to kind of set up and get going with the stream and everything else. And since then, I've had other things come along that have been practically like winning the lottery in some cases, to be quite honest. And it, you know, again, it kind of reaffirmed to me that this is what he's talking about in this book is the way to live. It's been a very interesting adventure. I can't say that everything in my life has been amazing every step of the way. Even his life wasn't amazing. He got raided by the FBI, and, you know, he was being sued by the government, or charged with some crimes by the government. I forget exactly what it was, and what exactly happened, but it wasn't always rosy and picture perfect. But I would say that that voice seems to know way better than you do. At least it has for me. I can say that my life fell apart when I thought I knew everything. So I stopped assuming I knew everything, and assuming I actually don't know about most things, and I should probably not talk about them with absolute assurance. I always leave space that I could be wrong. There's very few things I consider myself an expert in. I've done web design and internet marketing for a few decades, so I feel confident about speaking as an expert on that. What I'm talking about now, I feel pretty confident in. again, because I've been doing this for a long time myself, and also helping people along the way. And even then, I wouldn't say I'm an expert though, but I'm confident. I would say I also know quite a bit about the New Jersey Devils, because I've been a fan of them since I was 6, and I keep up with them pretty much. But those kinds of, like, there's only 4 or 5 things. The rest I default to, I probably don't know. And I think there's a lot to be said about the idea that your life will be way better, way more interesting, way more fun if you can set aside all the fears and doubts and everything else and just try to listen to that voice as much as possible. If it tells you, you got to get on stage and give this performance, you know, and it's like, yeah, but I have stage fright. Like, no, you got to get on stage. Even getting on this stream when I first started was the worst part is I knew as part of this business that getting on Twitch would be a big deal for me. And as someone who's introverted, I was like, yeah, that's not super comfortable. Now it is. I've done this like 10 times or whatever. I don't give a shit anymore. And luckily I had the experience of talking to clients for 10 plus years over video, making videos for them, showing what's on my screen, talking about internet marketing or showing off web designs and all that kind of stuff. So I feel comfortable in front of my monitor and webcam recording videos anyway. But, you know, talking about my life and rough life experience is a bit of a different thing. But I needed to honor that voice. I needed to get business. Wanted to go in a different direction. But I needed to honor that voice. It is something where I think reading this book will hopefully be inspiring to people to trust that that voice knows a little bit better than your ego does. I do think, again, that trauma and grief recovery work really helps because you will be fighting with yourself a lot less. And I think this is kind of, when I talk about my coaching and the work I do with people, I break it down into 3 parts. And the first part is, you know, we have to find out what is holding you back, right? So that's all the shit that from your childhood or whatever else that is currently kind of infecting you and fucking your shit up. Number 2, we have to resolve it. We have to heal it. We have to go through trauma and grief recovery work, clear all that shit out. So you're not fighting yourself so much. So you're not fighting all these negative thoughts. You don't have limiting beliefs, you know, bad stories, narratives, all that kind of shit. Once that's all cleared out and you take a little bit of time to just start thinking and tapping back into what is being said without all the like fears and doubts and all the shit getting in the way and holding you back, you start to actually realize that what you thought you wanted, you no longer want because it was all those fears and shit telling you what you wanted and it thinking it knew best. And then you start going like, oh, okay, this is actually what I feel like or what I should be doing or what the good voice is telling me to do, right? And then from there, it's like, as far as my work, how do I help you accomplish that? And so at that point in the journey, I get into a little bit more traditional coaching with people, helping them to achieve their goals, dreams, make life changes, so on and so forth. Yeah, this book is just really, really interesting. It really shows what can happen when you get out of your way and let go of what you think should be right. At least, let's say, again, your ego, and really try to just go with maybe what your heart is telling you. Steve Jobs had a really good speech. I brought this up on stream before, where he was giving a commencement speech to a class that was graduating, and he was talking about how, because of him listening to his heart, computers had fonts. And at the end, he basically said, always listen to your heart. Somehow it always seems to know what the right thing is. Like on a spiritual level, it seems to be the case. because like you don't even know what the outcome will be, but it seems to be certain that that's a good path, and it basically always is. Again, we could argue about Socrates, but most of you aren't going to be put in a position where following this voice is going to lead you to not run away from a trial where you're going to be put to death by drinking poison. Like, that's just not in the cards for the vast majority of viewers watching this stream, I think. So I would recommend this way of life. I would recommend this book pretty strongly. And I think I think it'll be really interesting to those who are already into meditation or mindfulness, or recognize that their voice just doesn't shut the fuck up, and what could be done about it. And again, if you're... I already have worked with a meditation coach. I've already... where's my mouse? There we go. I've already worked with a meditation coach. I've already learned quite a bit about mindfulness and all that kind of stuff. I didn't really need the instruction manual as much. I'd love to read this at some point just because I thought the other book was so great. But when I was getting into this, it wasn't like capturing me, and I felt I had to go in a different direction with other stuff I needed to know at that time, so I was reading other books as well. If you need something that's a little bit more like, okay, how did he do it? He gets into it a little bit in the Surrender Experiment, talking about his life and what the outcome was. But I think this is more of the, this is my philosophy. Here's how to kind of install it into your life to start living this way and all that kind of stuff. Then you might check out The Untethered Soul. All right. God, I feel dehydrated. Fucking Phoenix, so dry. Drink some non-carbonated water. All right, one book down. 2, 1.5, 2, something like that. Okay. The Mind-Made Prison by Matteo Tabatabai. Hopefully. Yes, let's go with it. This is a book that is not some major self-development book to my knowledge. It does have 325 reviews. What did the other one have? Surrender Experiment? 3,941. So you can see in the other one here, 20,000 ratings. These are obviously way, way bigger books. New York Times bestsellers. This is, you can see it says The Mind-Made Prison. It's a cheap stock photo, Amazon bestseller. You would not come across this book normally and go, this looks like some self-development classic. And I don't know exactly how I found it even, because I don't think I would have just come across this on Amazon and been like, that looks good. Maybe it was like offered for really cheap or something. I see, like, if you had Kindle Unlimited, which I've never had. $1.99 to buy after credit. So it's a super cheap ebook. Maybe that's what I did, where I was like, oh, well, it's only a $2 book. This looks kind of interesting. Let me just grab it, because I wouldn't have paid $10 for the paperback when it looks like this. This book is so good. It's astounding. I mean, really. This is a book that if this is legitimately... Can I just buy the Kindle? Like, Kindle price, $2.99. I have $1 credit. Okay, so for $3, everyone watching this should go on Amazon and buy this book for $3 fucking dollars, the ebook, and read it. 208 pages. It is it really gets to the heart of a lot of what I've said on here about your stories and beliefs affecting your life. And it's probably the book I think, that has done the best job of laying it out and explaining it, as well as coming up with some solutions that are I don't know that they are the final solutions, but they're damn good solutions for someone who wasn't writing a book about like truly going into your childhood and healing grief or trauma. It still is remarkably insightful. It is a really good book, in my opinion. I was really, like, I started reading it and I was really stunned that this was not like a self-development classic. Really, truly. You know, again, I really, engineer and psychologist, spent more than 15 years immersed in spiritual and self-development practices. You can tell, truly, you can tell that this was not written by a newbie. He really hit the nail on the head in so many ways, about so many things, about like the deepest things in self-development. It's like, I'm not sure if I had read this book at the beginning of my journey if I would have grasped just how profound it was. I think I read it probably about 6 years ago, so I was already like a decade in or something like that. Yeah, it's one of those things that, like, I'd still recommend it to anyone just starting out. And you can see just in the description, The Mind Made Prison is a guide to becoming aware of your beliefs and becoming free from them. It's based on NLP, cognitive psychology, and mindfulness. So the answer, as far as what is being suggested, takes a different approach. I don't have a problem with NLP, mindfulness, and all that kind of stuff. I know people who go that direction, whereas I'm a little more interested in rooting out traumatic events and healing those and having that change beliefs and stuff. But this still is, like, for $3, this is like a no-brainer to get this book. And just to show you that I'm not just full of shit, you know, I don't know why this, for example, if a woman decides that she doesn't need to bathe anymore because it's a waste of time and believes that anyone has, I don't know what's up with this rating, but as a lifelong believer and practitioner of self-help and self-improvement, I was blown away by this book. There's a number of reviews by people like that and like someone like me who has read a significant amount and came across this and was like, damn. And I've heard about this book on forums of people who were, like, especially entrepreneurs and stuff, because I kind of hang out in those circles, you know, being an online self-employed person. All those people are usually looking to level up and get better. Like, if you're an entrepreneur, you are typically reading a lot of nonfiction. How can I be a little more productive? How can I be a little bit better? How can I get my mindset right? How can I make a little more money? How can I do this? How can I, you know, there is certainly a kind of like a cult of self-help. And I think some people just do it because of the rush they get, but there's a significant amount of people out there, especially entrepreneurs, business owners, all those kinds, who actively read a lot of books like this. And this book, for those in the know, it comes up in there. I've seen a few reviews here by people who have been into it. I mean, I guess, to be fair, there's a few 3- and 2-star reviews where people just didn't like it. I think that's the case with just about any book. I mean, let's see. I'm sure The Surrender Experiment is not all. Yeah, 5% 3-star ratings, a few 2 stars and stuff as well. But if you really look at the breakdown, I think when you have mostly 5- and 4-star reviews, that's pretty solid. Maybe it won't be as profound as to other people as it was to me, but I thought it was very insightful about how, at the end of the day, like, you can try to change your habits, which I'm going to get into in a little bit, and that's important. You can try to, you know, work on different techniques and stuff to kind of combat negative thoughts and all this kind of stuff, but at the root core of everything is your beliefs and your stories and all that kind of stuff, and they inform everything else. So if you really want to make big changes, you should go to the source. You should go to the root, because once those change, it affects everything else. So why are you fucking with like this the end results? Like the source is always going to keep feeding those same results, right? Your beliefs are always going to keep the same thoughts coming up, the same fears coming up. You imagine like you have this machine that is spitting out fears and all this other kind of stuff, and you're just trying to like swat the fears away, but the machine's still spitting all that shit out. It'd be smarter to go over and change the machine to not spit out fears anymore, but spit out like positive things, like I love myself, and I am a good human being who tells the truth, and always tries to do the right thing, and all these other kinds of stuff. And I don't need to be ashamed if I'm not doing wrong things, or or if I had a lesson from some trauma that I was bad, I can change that so that it's not spitting out you're bad, you're bad, you're bad. It could just be like, no, I'm worthy, I'm good, I deserve love, all these other things, right? I don't understand why we would attack things at the top, the symptoms, when the disease is curable. You could cure your negative limiting beliefs, bad stories, all the bad misinformation you learn from them and everything. If you cure that, your life really does change. That's the message I keep trying to get across. This book probably explains that better than most self-development books I've ever read. Most self-development tries to tackle something like your habits or this or that. This really gets into the core of like this is the root. This is the problem. You're now at ground zero. This is, once you're done dealing with all the other bullshit, this is what you need to actually look at and address. I say all the other bullshit. It's not that I don't think that habits are important. It's not that I don't think other aspects are important. Like we just talked about the surrender experiment and kind of living a certain way. So, after I kind of changed the beliefs and everything like that and worked on that, then I was cleared up to be like, okay, now I'm going to commit to trying to living this way, right? So there's multiple aspects here that all kind of combine to form a life philosophy. And I don't want to say just this one book is the be-all, end-all, but it is something that, it's the second one I'm bringing up for a reason. It's $3 on Amazon. Anyone watching this should just go buy it. It's $3. So, I don't want to get into some of these books too much, because I'm just not sure where the line is as far as, kind of showing off the book. Like, I could pull these books up, I could show the chapters, I could show kind of some of the stuff that they're talking about. I don't know what the line is there exactly, not just as far as copyright, but like just and like legal, but just not infringing on the author's work. But yeah, despite don't judge a book by its cover on this one. I know the cover is a cheap ass stock photo image. It's still a book that will truly explain in a deep 200-page explanation a lot of what I'm talking about in regards to why beliefs and stories are so important and the fundamental thing that you should be working on. At least to begin changing. If you are really wrestling because you have these negative beliefs and they're informed by like shitty childhood or things that happen and all that kind of stuff, and you're trying to tackle like habits. Like, I'm not saying tackling habits is a bad thing. It can even get you by a little bit, and it's something worth thinking about as well, but that can't be the focus, right? Because you're just, again, if you have like negative beliefs, it's like carrying around a 100-pound pack on your back all day, every day. It makes everything else you do harder. It makes your habit formation harder. It just makes changing your thoughts. Like, everything is 5 times harder than it needs to be. So, if you were going to order the priority of how you should work on things, to me, it seems to make sense that you would work on putting the pack down first. It's like, okay, now I don't have the pack on anymore. Now what do I want to do? Well, I'd like to build some habits that would be healthy for me. I'd like to exercise a little bit more. I'd like to learn something, so I'm going to commit to, like, I want to learn to play an instrument. Cool, well, now I have more energy and more time and more focus to legitimately commit to learning the instrument. As opposed to, like, oh, I'm so tired today because I'm so worn down from this heavy fucking pack that even if I, practiced a few days in a row, oh, I just gotta take a day off because I'm just, like, I'm fucking tired and other stuff came up, and you start making excuses. You get off track on all these things you want to accomplish. And then especially as gamers, and even if we're not in a world with so many distractions, it's so... we're always going to do things tomorrow, right? Oh, God, I had a really hard day at work. I just need to play some League. I'll start the practice tomorrow. I just need to chill tonight because it was really hard. Or I need to just sit on my couch and watch a movie. If you are... I'm not saying you never have hard days, but if you put the pack down, then you could have that hard day but still come home and be like, alright, that was a hard day, but I committed to this. I can at least get on there for 20 minutes, and then I can play League. I mean, that... Again, I go buy the book. It's $3. Seriously. Alright. This one is going to be pretty personal. But it wouldn't be truthful if I left it out. A Confession by Leo Tolstoy. If you are in a bad place and you're wrestling with the idea of God whatsoever, you should legitimately read this book. And I think it's possible that some people watching this might be wrestling with that, as I was, especially if you're struggling. You might not be in the thick of it right now, but I was. Even though I was through the worst of everything, I was really struggling with, okay, I got out of hell, right? I survived 3 years of misery. But I was looking at the path ahead, and as any good Buddhist will tell us, and even the crappy ones at least should know this, first noble truth is that life is suffering. You're a really crappy Buddhist if you don't know that. And that's true. It's true. And so when you look at it, you're kind of like, all right, so my life has been a struggle for the majority of it, and then I just got laid on my ass after a majority of my life being a struggle. And I finally climbed out of that. Am I facing the next 40 years of life just being a miserable struggle and then I die? If so, why am I doing this? It wasn't necessarily a question of like, I am at rock bottom and I hate my life, so I want to kill myself. It was a very rational, like, what's the point of this? What's the point of continuing? Right? So I found Albert Camus, who, recognized this question. One of his quotes was something, and I'm paraphrasing, to the effect of, all philosophy is kind of useless if it's not addressing the fundamental question of whether or not we should kill ourselves. And I was like, yeah, all right. So he's got the problem figured out. And I was trying to figure out what his solution was to this. And the best I could tell is that, because I was trying to figure out if there was a way to basically like do this but be agnostic or even atheist at the same time. Right? If I could like get through this and have a reason that could be secular. And him being, I believe, atheist, if not agnostic then, but not a strong believer, basically agreed. He's like, well, there is no point to all this, but I'm such a rebel that I'm just going to choose to be a rebel and live anyway and be a rebel against the fact that all this is meaningless. I'm just going to rebel against it. And I'm not trying to hate on the dude's intelligence or that he was a, I mean, he's published author and people turned to him for a reason, but to me that just seemed like a really stupid fucking solution. Like that doesn't help me. What if I don't want to be a rebel? Then I'm just fucked. All right. What am I supposed to do with that? I don't know. That was my takeaway from it. I know there's other people out there who are like, that's what they cling to as a, okay, yeah, I agree that there's no purpose or point to all this, so I'm going to just be a rebel, and that'll be my reason to, it'll be a big fuck you to a meaningless universe. It's like, all right, well, if that's what's keeping you going, like, great, but that wasn't really an answer for me. This book, A Confession, had such clarity in explaining the thought process and laying out the problem and the struggle of if life is ultimately meaningless and there's no higher purpose, there's no bigger metaphysical thing or God or reason or anything else, and it's ultimately meaningless, and there's nothing that justifies the struggle, then why aren't we all devolving into nihilism and killing ourselves? If you are really, truly looking at the problem, if you're really faced with it, you're not just ignoring it, you're not just distracting it, playing games or watching TV or whatever else, if you are really squarely looking this in the eye, in my opinion, it is hard to get around the issue that life's probably not worth it without there potentially being some higher reason or meaning or purpose. I think I've had some other people argue me, and they said their argument basically was something to the effect of they recognized that they had like meaning in everything because of Judeo-Christian principles or religious foundations, and they kind of argued like, well, what if I don't buy the cow? I can just still enjoy the milk. But my argument to that would be something like, there is no milk if you don't accept cows exist. Right? So you're just using a leap in your logic to get around that, and you're just not addressing it and being honest and haven't really fully investigated it. But hey, if that works for you and that's why you're going, that's fine. But Tolstoy basically bumped up against this fundamentally. He's like, being atheist was kind of in vogue back in his time, which was, I believe, around 1900, turn of the century, somewhere in there. Even in Russia, you had a lot of intellectuals across the world. You know, the death of God was in full effect among the intellectual community at that point, where they're like, this is silly, you know? It's not like this is a new thing that we've discovered in 2021 or for the past few decades, you know, like they were even contemplating this back in the day. And something I found really amusing was he was looking around at his contemporaries and he recognized that they kind of broke down into 4 different groups, and he was struggling because, you know, what he saw among the groups who were the non-believers was not good, right? Because if you kind of don't believe there's anything higher, it's really difficult for you to think that you really shouldn't lie or cheat or steal in all circumstances. You make excuses for it, right? Because it's like, well, I'm not going to get any kind of cosmic punishment anyway. But you usually wind up do. Like, usually that happens, and kind of what I was saying before, like, karma does seem to exist, weirdly enough. So, his problem was, though, is that as someone who is logical, he's, and you know, where he's from, the religion was Christianity, right? So he's looking at it and he's like, but I just don't believe this shit because it's illogical. Recently, someone in Discord, not in our Discord, but elsewhere, challenged me and said, like, you know, I made a comment that I think a lot of people had swapped out religion and swapped in politics and their political party as their religion, and that I didn't think a lot of people even recognized that they were religious in the first place towards this. I think the person really missed the point of what I was saying, but they were like, well, what if there's just people who think religion's illogical? It's like, yeah, a lot of us in 2021 look at a lot of stuff in the Bible and think it's illogical. The problem is you're kind of missing the point, because the people who go, oh, well, the Bible's saying what it is, and I can find this one discrepancy that's not true that invalidates it, are absolutely misunderstanding the point. It's not what it is or what happened. It's a manual on how to live. We don't look at Aesop's fables and go, oh, that didn't actually happen, so it's not true. Like, no shit. No shit, Aesop's fables are not true. That's not the fucking point. But somehow we do that with the Bible and other big religious texts. I'm saying the Bible because that's the big one here in America. Nonetheless, though, I was still struggling with that very question. Now I can say no shit. But back then, I was, and as I was reading this book, I realized Tolstoy was as well. Because he's like, this stuff out of church and everything, like, it's not making sense. And at the end of the day, he also, I wouldn't say he went in the exact same direction I did, but he came to a similar conclusion of integrating his own spirituality and understanding that it's the lessons, having belief, having faith was part of it, but that you didn't necessarily have to adhere to a religion and, you know, every single thing, like by every single line in the Bible or any other religious text of your choice, hook, line, and sinker, and that's the truth, that's the whole truth, it's nothing but the truth, that's the only thing that could have happened, and all that kind of stuff. To have belief and faith and meaning carry you through the ultimate truth and reality that life is suffering. It's like, yes, life is suffering, but if you have this belief in meaning and purpose, that can make it all worth it. Right? And that's something that I've tried to talk about on this channel before. I haven't gone super in-depth in it, but if you... And I really try not to preach religion, but I felt it wouldn't have been true to not bring up this book and the impact it had on me. And there's a possibility that other people may have wrestled with this or will wrestle with it or are wrestling or did or whatever, that this book, I think if you read it, even though he's using Christianity, he's really arguing whether there's something greater or not anyway. Like, it's not, is Christianity true? It's, is there, like, what is the proper way to live to get around this kind of fundamental problem if you believe in God versus if you don't believe in God, or some higher thing, right? And I'm going to use God in air quotes because I'm not necessarily talking about an old white dude in the sky. We're talking about something bigger and more evolved than that. We're not just saying Sky Daddy, right? So if you are wrestling with that, and you also kind of have to, I think if you are wrestling with this question, you do probably have to wrestle with something fundamental, which I had to wrestle with, which was, you know, okay, a lot of the ways I act are born out of society being built on a lot of these beliefs, right? That's kind of what the other person was saying, like, well, I can still enjoy the milk because this is how we operate, right? So I could just go with it, but I don't have to actually believe. Again, I don't think that's intellectually honest, but if it works for that person, like, who am I? Like, I wasn't gonna tackle it any further and say, like, no, you're living wrong, you know, but I could just say that wasn't satisfactory for me. But I wouldn't, this is not a defense of Christianity. It's about wrestling with a super fundamental question, and if you are wrestling with that in your life, I think Tolstoy had a lot of clarity in getting across what he was struggling with. He also laid out the, let's say, the chessboard very well in showing, like, okay, here's a presupposition, right? Okay, if we go this direction, well, here's what you bump up against. If you go this direction, here's what you bump up against. And kind of laying out the map of struggling, like, of all the sub-questions that kind of come out from under that. So I found, again, it was one of those things that it was the right time in my life because I was struggling with it. It might not be the right time for everyone. It may just be a book that you're interested in just to see, okay, well, that sounds interesting. You know, I'm not actually struggling with it, but I'd like to have a little bit more insight into it or something like that. I thought this book was super impactful for me. This is one of those ones that I'm not sure it's... trying to figure out where I'd rate it. Because once I was done reading it, it's not like I need to go back to it or anything like that. But it clearly is in the top 5 books that has impacted my life, period. Because it helped me with potentially the most fundamental question there is. And I don't think that's why are we here. It's more like, what's the point? So if you're dealing with what's the point, you should check this book out. Okay, let me drink some more water, get hydrated. Not too bad of a pace. Hour and 20 in. Okay, this one, Atomic Habits by James Clear. I've talked about this before on the stream here and there. This tattoo is because of this book. I read this book at the end of 2019. I got this tattoo at the beginning of 2020, which is saying something because I have 3 tattoos. I usually sit on a tattoo for at least 3 to 6 months and go, you know, do I want this? Do I want this? Do I want this? Am I dying to get this? Like, is it just something I want, or is it something I can't live without? Because if I just kind of want it, the chances are it will fade away. But if it's something I can't live without, then I know I'm on the right track. And if after 6 months I'm still annoyed that I don't have this tattoo, and I'm like, no, this is a big deal for me. Like, this is something that it's like, I have thought about this long and hard, and I see this on myself, and I will want it there for the rest of my life to remind myself of something, because all my tattoos are deeply meaningful, and they're usually multifaceted in their meaning for me. So this one I jumped on pretty quick. And where this comes from, a lot of people ask me, what's the 3? Or what's the E? And I go, it's not a 3, or it's not an E. It's definitely not an E for Everclear, because I would have done a lowercase 1 rather than a capitalized 1. This is the Greek letter epsilon. And in this book, he was talking about how the Greek letter epsilon in math often represents the tiniest of numbers. Like, infinity is representative of essentially the biggest of numbers, because numbers just don't ever stop. Epsilon is kind of like the opposite of infinity, like approaching 0, but never really truly getting there. It's super, 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 like, decimal fraction tiny. And what he was saying is, if you go on Facebook once in your life for 1 minute, right? Let's say you've never been on Facebook before, you open your phone, you install it, you're on there for 1 minute, and then you uninstall it from your phone, you're never on Facebook again. The cost of that 1 minute is nothing. It's practically 0, right? It's epsilon. But if you do that 1 minute every 10 or 20 minutes, all day, every day, for 5 years, the epsilon, all those little epsilons add up to a massive cost. And for me, what this was really saying is, because I work online, I'm an internet marketer, I go on Facebook to do work, not just to dick around. And it's, as an internet marketer, when you're in social media, it can get a hold of you. But there's other things in life too that can get a hold of you that just seem minor, but they actually really invade your life. Truly, what it was saying is that even the smallest little things, even that little 1 minute on Facebook, it matters. Everything you do matters. So, both in a greater sense of meaning and purpose, in a spiritual sense, but also the little things you do every day. Hey, man. Or not man, female. Welcome to the chat. It's going good. Just reviewing some books. So everything you do matters. And if everything you do matters, then we should really try to be thoughtful about our day and build healthy habits and not do stupid shit each day. We shouldn't be wasting time on social media unless you really intend to do it. And I'm not suggesting that we can't play games. I'm not suggesting that we can't, it's not that you can never use social media again. But you never want to do things mindlessly. You never want to let that stuff invade your life to the point that it's really interfering with you doing the things you want to do and or dragging you down, especially your mental health. Like, right, this stream and what we're all talking about kind of all comes back to mental health. If you have been paying attention whatsoever in the past 5 years, there have been a plethora of studies coming out that basically show that social media is effectively cancer for your brain, right? And to be honest, it kind of wore on me a little bit as someone who was a web designer and internet marketer, that I was even preying, in a certain sense, on people like that. I'm not saying that I think all advertising or social media is bad, but you are kind of supporting it by being in the industry. So, James Clear, if you don't know, has been blogging. Where's my mouse? He's been blogging at jamesclear.com for like 10 or 15 years. And you don't even have to buy the book if you just like really went through, here it is, articles, habits, right? If you just clicked on here, what are habits? Of course he's going to try to sell the book, but he like really dives into it, and he's linked all these different blog posts that he's written, so you can kind of just go by topic, whether it's habits or focus, motivation, self-improvement. I mean, he's been journaling or blogging about this for a very, very long time. He has like, if he doesn't have it by now, I'd be surprised. I think he had something like 800,000 people on his newsletter a few years ago, so he's got to be over 1 million by now. He's not a slouch in the industry by any stretch of the imagination. Again, if you don't want to buy the book for $12 or the audiobook for $6, you can just go on his website and see so much and learn so much information about building habits and all that kind of stuff. The book is everything he's learned and everything he's blogged about condensed into a straightforward, like, here's the manual. Here's what habits are. Here's how we build them. Here's tips and tactics and all that kind of stuff to like really start to understand how to build these, how to form these, why you're tripping up, why you're not actually building these habits right, what you're doing wrong and all that kind of stuff. I wouldn't say that all the information was new to me. I had learned about habits quite a bit over the many years of self-development that I've been studying this kind of stuff, but I would say it's the I don't want to call it the Bible by any stretch of the imagination as far as habits go, but if you took everything else and really wanted to combine it all into one tome that was like, this is the manual, it's this book. I really believe that this book is it's not it's very straightforward. It's easy to read, it's easy to understand. If you are struggling with doing stuff that you don't want to be doing, although I talked about earlier about how you really want to like fix your beliefs, that can take time. And in the process, you can still be doing very practical things like implementing good habits, which will help, and those things play off one another, right? So as you're kind of changing your beliefs, if you're changing what you're doing, that will inform you and begin to inform you that you're a new person, and you will build new beliefs based on your habits. Now, old beliefs can still get in the way, and that's why it's important to clear out the bad ones that are clogging you up and like fucking your shit up. But the new beliefs are basically like a vote in favor of the person you are. So a very easy example of this is, let's say I want to be a runner, right? I know I need to take control of my health. Running seems like the thing that I most want to do. I put some headphones on, it's cardio, I'll lose some weight, it's easy, I like nature, so if I get out there and I'm running down a road and there's some trees and stuff, that'll be nice. I'm just struggling to build the habit up, right? Well, clearing out the obstacles in your way of actually building the habit will help. Right? Now, again, going back to what I said earlier, if you have a 100-pound pack on, it's going to be a lot harder to get out the door every day and run. And I'm talking about not a physical 100-pound pack, but just stuff that's weighing on your mind and dragging you down psychophysiologically. Right? But that is why building habits the smart way can help you to get them implemented despite maybe still having a 100-pound pack on your back. And if you can start building those habits and getting there, just taking small steps and building up and building them into a concrete habit, now you change from I want to be a runner but I just don't have the motivation, or and making all these excuses and everything, to I am a runner. I've been doing this for 30 days. I've built this up. It's going. I've gotten to like cruising altitude. I run X amount of time or distance, most days a week. And this is part of my identity now. And while it's unlikely that something like running is going to help you change your identity, because I think a lot of people struggling with shit from their past, who are escaping to games or drugs or whatever, being a runner might not change the underlying deep belief that like I'm a bad person, I'm not worthy, I should be ashamed, all that kind of stuff. And that's why that deep work still really matters. But being a runner is better than like being an alcoholic, for example, right? So if we can begin to replace bad and shitty habits, and I'm not saying you can never, if you're an alcoholic, that's a problem and like you should get help for that. If you're not an alcoholic though, what I'm not suggesting is you can never have a drink. But if most of your life is like going to work and just kind of distracting yourself with some pleasure, like TV, video games, and all that kind of stuff, to the exclusion of healthy habits. So you're letting your health slip. You're letting it, and by that I mean physical, mental, whatever. You're not growing. You're not, just really taking care of yourself at the end of the day on some level. Then you need to make some changes. And again, runner's not going to that part of your identity is not necessarily going to combat the deep negative beliefs that some grief or trauma might have caused you. But if you can start to identify yourself as I'm a runner, I do this, I do that, you are doing something you want to do. You're staying committed to yourself and actually following through on it, and it's something good and healthy for you. You're going to feel better about yourself from that. It's going to start rebuilding your identity into someone who you're proud of, you're happy about, and you're going to start to view yourself in a more positive light. And that is going to seriously help you on your journey if you are someone who's stuck and struggling. The people who are watching me a lot on stream, I've talked to some of you before, and I've talked to many people before I knew I wanted to go down this road and coach people for a long time, because I knew I wasn't the only one struggling with it. Because for years playing online games, as soon as I started talking about the journey that I had been on and the stuff I had been through, so many people were curious, not because they were like interested in me, although they kind of were. It was like, tell me what you did, because I'm interested in applying that for myself. Like, I know what a lot of you are struggling with. I'm not going to dive into it too deep, but there's a lot of people who are struggling with depression, anxiety, feeling unworthy, having breakdowns, being suicidal. These are things that I'm hearing about from the viewers of this. The practical steps you can take, even if you are, I said before, why are you tackling the shit on the top when you should tackle the beliefs? Yes, you should tackle the beliefs, but you can still take practical steps in the meantime about some of that stuff on the top, and if you do it right, it can help you with the beliefs as well, which is actually pretty cool. So, and in the way I just laid out, because if you change your habits and you begin to become someone who does something, and then you can identify with that, again, like runner, I start to run, I consistently do it, therefore I am a runner. Now that's something I can feel good about. I I'm glad to integrate that into my personality. I'm glad to integrate that into my belief system, right? That's something I can be proud of, I can feel good about, I can build some self-esteem, I can build some self-confidence. As you build self-esteem and self-confidence, your depression and your anxiety and all that other shit's going to start to go down. It's not the ultimate solution, it's not the only solution. These things are multifaceted, but these are, I do think that you want to tackle these things in every direction you can. Because at the end of the day, if you are dealing with depression, anxiety, whatever else, your life is on the line, man. Or woman, or whatever you are. You know, like, you're just holding yourself back by not addressing it, right? Like, do you really want to continue to deal with depression? Like, for me, what drove me all these years, over decades of figuring this out, is like, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of sucking. I'm tired of being depressed. I'm tired of not having my shit together. I don't think I can't be the only one. Is anyone really psyched about being depressed? The problem is, we often go to a therapist, and it's like, oh, well, here's some pills. And you come in once a week, and we'll talk. Okay? Are you building different habits? Are you attacking limiting beliefs? Are you wrestling with big questions? Or are you just talking about what pissed you off that week? And then taking a pill to, like, numb the fact that it's really that bad because you're not actually you're not listening to that little voice, you're not living the life you actually want to, you're doing all the shit you don't even like, and then you are distracting yourself with video games or drugs or whatever the fuck else. So, you know, I would implore people watching this, if you're in those positions, start reading some of these books, start looking for alternatives and not just relying on, like, oh, well, I'm going to a therapist and I'm getting help. Take your life into your own hands. Take responsibility for it. Don't make the therapist responsible for it. Don't make the pills responsible for it. You're responsible for it. Shit might not be your fault, but you're still responsible for it. So, Atomic Habits really is the manual. It provides extremely practical steps to just begin to, you know, if there's anything that you're sitting there like, I wish I would start doing this already, or I've been meaning to do this for weeks, months, years. You know, I want to learn an instrument. I want to become a runner. I want to do this. I want to do that. I just want to be better at, I don't know, taking care of my pets or something. Like, I want to build a habit where I walk the dog more often because I don't feel like I'm meeting my dog's needs, you know, or whatever the case it is. This is a really good book to show you maybe where you're failing every time you try to start. Most people are trying to start way, way too big. Like, I can give that away at least. That's pretty common knowledge among the habit building literature out there, and you can find that on just about any blog post. Normally, if you're trying to build a habit, you are like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym for like an hour 3 times a week. Like, you've already fucked up, honestly. Like, the chances that you're going to be successful at that are slim to none unless you're already someone who has really great willpower and motivation and discipline. If you're someone like that, like my brother, his discipline and willpower is like off the charts. He's almost robotic. And it's like awesome. Like, I wish I had that. He's really good at, like, he says he's going to do something and he just like does it. You know? If you're like me, you want to not be like, I'm going to go to the gym 3 hours a week. It's like, no, I am going to put my sneakers on. I'm going to get into the workout clothes, and then anything that happens after that, cool. If I work out for just 5 minutes, that's a win, right? And I'm just going to commit to putting on the clothes and the shoes and everything. And it sounds stupid and almost silly, like childish even. But deep down, you have a child in there kind of like running the show usually as far as like building new habits goes. and you just really have to condition them and grow bigger until because it's there's so much resistance. Like to go from 0 to 100, which is basically what you're doing when you try to go, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week for an hour each time. There's like so many things that get in the way. There's so much resistance. There's so, like, you're trying to insert such a huge thing into your routine that so many excuses will come up and trip you up. But anyone can at least throw the clothes on. And anyone can at least, like, if you're trying to start running, I'm going to put my shoes on and I'm going to walk out the front door. If I choose to run, I might just run down to the end of the block and back. I'm going to do that for just a week. And then next week I'm going to run down to the end of the block and back. Then I'm going to run down to the end of the block and back. Alright, so I'm going to do 2 times. Eventually you will just build up where just running back and forth around the block, around the neighborhood, or whatever works, but you really got to start small. Most people are, if you are fucking up to form healthy habits, this is what you're doing wrong. Like, this is number 1. There's other things in there. It really helps to basically set a trigger that basically fires off the habit. And also things you can do is, if you already have an established habit, you can like basically build a secondary habit onto that. So it's like, well, I know I always brush my teeth, right? Well, if you always brush your teeth, then that habit is established. So what you can then do is build another habit off of that one. Like, that's okay, when I'm done brushing my teeth, then my next habit is this, right? And that's easier than just trying to pick a time of day that's kind of random and nothing else is happening, and then be like, okay, now it's time to do this habit. So when you like chain habits like that, it can help you build habits when you already have at least one existing one going on already. Like, you can start with that one. There's other tips and stuff like that in the book. I'm just picking out the most basic things about habit building to talk about. Again, if you don't read the book, you can literally just go onto jamesclear.com and read. You know, it's not going to be condensed. You're going to have to search around a little bit more, but you're going to find stuff that you're going to get the information you need, basically speaking, to actually start forming habits and do, you know, to get started at least. So if you buy the book, it's just a shortcut and it saves you a lot of time kind of searching around and reading all the other articles. All right, so I have 2 left, but we only have 15 minutes left on this stream. Now, luckily, I have a lot of other books to discuss the rest of the week. So I'm trying to figure out which one I want to talk about. I think I'm going to skip to the final one because it's kind of short. And I've brought it up before, but I'm going to bring it up again. And then we'll save the other one for tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It by Kamal Ravikant. If you look, this book is 58 pages long. Now, I don't know why the paperback is $120. I don't know why the Kindle version is $16. That's, for a 60-page book, that's a little bit bullshit. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think it was that much when I actually purchased it on April 5th, 2016. April 5th, 2016 would have been 4 months into absolute hell for me. So I was struggling when I came across this book. Because at the beginning of 2016 is really when my life fell apart there. At the end of the day, it's just his story and how he built in a practice to tell himself, I love myself, and he built that habit, and he knew he had to start rewiring his mind to start loving himself, feeling worthy, and all this, because it was literally like his life fell apart, kind of like mine. His business, he even says, I was terrified. Here I was, a CEO who'd fallen apart after his company failed, and you know, he is saying here in the little description that he was scared to publish this book because it was very vulnerable and he was opening up. But I mean, it's not just his business failed, but like his health was failing, and he was in rough shape. And he was like, okay, I am I'm gonna just start loving myself. And so he just built the practice to just tell him this thing over and over and over and over. The book, the 60 pages, is really about his life story of, not life story, but his experience hitting rock bottom and then coming up from that. So it doesn't really need to be much longer than 60 pages, so that can be appreciated. Again, I don't mean to spoil it and suggest you shouldn't read this book just because it's like, well, ultimately he's telling you just to like repeat I love myself over and over to yourself. It's still a really good story, and you can see the effect, and he goes into it a little bit more deeply into why it's important to love yourself and all those other kinds of things, and his experience and all that kind of stuff. There is a reason that this little 58-page book has 4,325 reviews. Again, going back to the Surrender Experiment, that has 3,941. So this has even more, and it's only 60 pages. And again, you know, if you add up the 4 and 5 stars, it's significant. This is kind of a fair review. Worst book ever. It's just keep repeating this. But if you're really at that, if you're not at the point where you are like shit is falling apart and you're in a really bad spot, this might not be a book to read right now. Like, I certainly wouldn't pay $16 just for 60 pages to be told that, right? At the time, I needed this book. Since then, and since even doing this, I have spoken with people who were at rock bottom, and I said, basically the prescription was, throughout the day, I need you to start saying, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. Like, I need you to start repeating that to yourself and getting that in your brain, right? Words are super important. And, like, it always bothers me when people I care about say stuff that I can tell is kind of born out of some place that's not good, you know, like, because I really know how this kind of shit works. You know, I was with family eating dinner sometime in the past week or two, and someone knocked over a glass, and I was like, oh, I'm so dumb. Why would you tell yourself that? Don't tell yourself you're so dumb. You made a mistake knocking over a glass because you moved too fast. Like, that has nothing to do with your intelligence. You're not dumb for it. You're not stupid. That's another thing this person says sometimes. I'm so stupid, you know, because they accidentally spill something or whatever. You are just reinforcing this belief that you're stupid. Like, that's like why would you would never want to wish that on anyone. Stop doing that. Don't say shit like that. If you're watching this and you say things like that, catch yourself and stop doing that. And if you do think it, go, wait, no, I'm human, I'm fallible, I made a mistake. This has nothing to do with my intelligence. Likely you picked that kind of shit up because like someone called you that as a child when you made a mistake or something like that. So it's ingrained. It's like, oh, I made a mistake, so I'm stupid. If you believe you're stupid anytime you make a mistake, you're going to have a really hard time in life. Because we make mistakes, and that's how we learn. So now you're basically telling yourself you can never make a mistake, so you can never learn. You're always going to be stuck. It's like I'm not just... I'm not blowing this up, the importance of this up. I'm really not. This is super important. Something I'll say, my mentor actually mentioned this to me, but something I will say to people who do this, if they say something like that, is like, do you want your brain to know that? Because you're saying it, and you're hearing yourself say it, and you're ingraining that belief in yourself. So if you say you're stupid, or you're dumb, or you're insignificant, or whatever else, and that's what comes out of your mouth because someone else, like a long time ago, said that, and that was the information you picked up and the belief and the story you had, and now you've carried that with you, and you've just been repeating it to yourself every time you do something. Why are you doing that to yourself? Don't do that to yourself. It's not like that. That's dumb. to do it to yourself. You're not dumb, but that's a dumb thing to do because you're just ingraining this. Have compassion for yourself. Have empathy for yourself. Have love and caring for yourself. I made a mistake. It's not the end of the world. This has nothing to do with who I am as a person because I knocked something over by accident. I can be upset that I knocked it over. Like, oh, that sucks. I wish I didn't have to clean up this spill now. It doesn't mean that you as a person are dumb or bad or stupid or any other thing. Like that kind of thinking will hold you back so hard. And so if you say that shit to yourself all the time, you want to try to catch your... Think about this little stream that you're watching. Think about what I'm saying about this book. If that comes up and you go, oh, I'm so stupid. Wait, no. I'm not stupid. I just made a mistake. And it's okay, because I can clean this up and I can move on with my life. And then, if you really want to take it further, think about all the ways you're not stupid. Well, I'm pretty smart, or I'm at least capable of going through life and holding a decent job and like having my stuff together and all that kind of stuff. You know? You might not be Einstein, but you are probably not stupid or dumb. Like you're probably, if you're watching this, you are capable of understanding what I'm saying, which by default makes you not stupid or dumb. Right? I'm not Einstein either. But I would never say I'm stupid or dumb. Now, you could also, if you're not ready to get there, like go all the way there, change it from I'm so dumb or I'm so stupid to that was dumb. Because something you do could be kind of dumb. I did not go over the grief recovery book yet. There's a grief recovery book I use with clients. I don't know that I'm going to bring it up on here. I have talked about another one in the past called Let Forgiveness Set You Free. And I'm going to bring that up. Come on, mouse. I don't know why my Logitech mouse, if I haven't used it in a while, it's like really slow, and then the software kicks in and it remembers that it's supposed to be set to like a faster speed. Is it really loud? Typing on my keyboard? I tried to move the mic away from it because it was like super loud. Super loud. Okay. Don't know what I'm supposed to do about that. I'm gonna try to figure it out. I know, wonder if there's like the noise suppression software would help with keyboards as well as opposed to ambient noises. I'm gonna look into it. Thanks for letting me know. Let forgiveness set you free. None of these are what I'm looking for. Maybe because I shouldn't be in the Kindle department. Put mittens on your hands. Dude, it's the key clicks though. I don't think... I will look into fluffy keyboards. This book, Let Forgiveness Set You Free. If you're working alone, and I've already gotten some good feedback from someone who watches this and said, like they had been working through the book and they already noticed some changes that in the way they were handling things with a situation in their life, that their thought process was a little different, and all that kind of stuff. I think if you're working alone, this is probably the best book to go with. I haven't gotten my advanced copy yet from my mentor of a book that they're working on that I will likely try to use with clients. I use another one. The reason I don't want to get into using that is not because I'm trying to keep some trade secret away from everyone. Like, you have to hire me to use this book. It's that while I use the exercises in the book and some of the information, there's so much more that I'm bringing and so much more that my mentor brought with me and so much more that I'm bringing with clients that fills in lots of gaps that the book doesn't address, that I don't know that the book is super effective on its own. But the exercises are great, but you have to work with other people. Most people usually don't want to do the exercises unless they're held accountable by someone like a coach, because I know I sure as shit didn't if I wasn't accountable to my coach as I was doing it. So I would recommend Let Forgiveness Set You Free by Meredith Hook. Meredith is a client. She is someone who has coached me before, although that's not who I was just talking about. And she's a really good friend. And I'm thinking about asking her to come on here sometime, probably in the next few months, depending on where we go with the stream. She knows a ton about neuroscience, a ton about meditation and mindfulness and forgiveness. Really interesting person. If you want to check her out more, you can go to zensmarts.com. I'm going to type that in the chat again. I've brought her up before, and I'm not only recommending her just because I know her. Sorry, I don't have a fluffy keyboard yet. I know you heard that. I'm not just recommending her because she's a friend and a client and all that kind of stuff. She is someone whose wisdom I value greatly. She's not someone who's just a ivory tower researcher on this. She was in the corporate world. She was in the financial world, actually, in like hedge funds and stuff like that. It was super stressful. It was affecting her health. She had to find solutions, and since then, I think for I know at least a decade, possibly 2 decades, and maybe even more. I'm not sure exactly how long she's been on this. She has been following this path of, she meditates like 3 hours a day. She teaches about this stuff. She lives it by experience. And on top of that, she then works with neuroscience researchers at colleges to inform what she's saying, and merges classic Eastern religion and philosophy and techniques and stuff, and then understands the neuroscience of them and why they work. Right? So she is super insightful. It'd be cool to have her on here. I think she could really help people a lot. So yeah, if you are trying to recover from grief, I would start here if you're trying to do it on your own. I think it's just an easier entry, and I think the exercise and everything as you go through it, it's just baby steps. Whereas the book that I'll just tell everyone, the book that I work with clients, that I use with clients, is called The Grief Recovery Handbook. That book is something that is absolutely worth checking out. It really helped me. It has helped people I've worked with. It's helped a lot of people. But it might just not... It's not going to be super useful if you don't have a partner, if you don't have someone really holding you accountable, because it's kind of a deep dive into... It kind of throws you in the deep end a little bit, I guess is what I'd say. This one, again, it's like baby steps, whereas the other one, it's like, all right, let's just go and tackle some like really big shit. And if you don't have someone there for support who understands what the process is all about, they say in the book, we'll just find a partner. I'm not sure that even just having a partner is enough. Like, I think you really need someone like a coach who can help you work through that book. But the transformations are profound if you really do it. So I think Let Forgiveness Set You Free is a really great entry. And then as you see the results, as you tackle some of this stuff and you kind of take the baby steps, then you could graduate to that book and maybe do it on your own. But I think if you just went straight to that and tried to work through that on your own without any kind of support, like so many of my clients and people I talk to, they see what the work is in that book and they're like, I can't do this. Like this is asking too much. And I can tell you it's the hardest work that I've ever done. It's the hardest thing I've ever willingly put myself the hardest thing I've ever willingly put myself through. there's been things that have happened to me that maybe were harder, but for me to actually put myself through it, it's remarkably difficult to let go of some really deep, hard things, and having someone there to support and encourage and explain. I think a big part of my work is explaining how it ties in and how it's going to affect them and what we're trying to accomplish. I think the book lays out the steps, but it doesn't really build that bigger why or how it all works and all that kind of stuff. And without that motivation, without that understanding of what you're trying to even accomplish, you can just kind of sleepwalk through the steps and not actually accomplish what could be accomplished if you had that understanding and that insight and all that kind of stuff. Let Forgiveness Set You Free, I think, does a great job, even though the steps are broken out way more and it's a ton of little exercises. The narrative that she constructs and explains how it all ties in together kind of does the work that I'm doing, adding on to the Grief Recovery Handbook and informing you in the first place. I don't feel like the Grief Recovery Handbook really goes deep enough in informing like why this matters and why you should do it. It's just like, oh, well, here's the steps to get through it. I'm simplifying. That's not totally fair to the book, but at the same time, effectively, it kind of is. So if you need to tackle grief, Let Forgiveness Set You Free. This is where I direct everyone, unless you're working with someone like me. And I may have another book, not this week. It's probably a few months away. I know that, again, my mentor has like 2 publishers interested, and I'm supposed to be getting an advanced copy of it sometime soon, so I'm going to read through that, and if and when it comes out, I will almost certainly be recommending it because I know the work I've done with my mentor and I know how good she is, so we'll see. But yeah, I think that's probably a good place to stop since we're just over 2 hours. Not bad, because what did we cover? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The Surrender Experiment, The Mind-Made Prison, A Confession, Atomic Habits, Let Forgiveness Set You Free. Oh, and also there was the Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. So we actually had 6 books covered today. So I'd recommend all of them. I'm not trying to state that these books are in order. So The Surrender Experiment is not the best book I've ever read. The Mind-Made Prison is not the second best book I've ever read. That's not what we're doing. What I did, I'm trying to pick a few that tackle different various things and then say, if you're struggling with this is a book that helped me with it. Next one, if you're struggling with this other thing over here, this is a book that helped me with it. If you're not struggling, I still think everyone should read this book because it's amazing, or something like that. I actually came up with about 20 books in total, so we might even take more than 3 days to go over these. But hopefully, even if not all of these books apply to you and where you're at, I hope that I'm throwing out enough variety of the different things that I struggled with over the past, again, 15 plus years, that as they came up in my life, I might have done other things, but eventually these books either were the solution or were a big part of the solution, or just really informed me about a key thing, that made a lot of sense and helped me take another step. In some cases, some of these books only helped me take like one step, but that step was so big that the book was still that important. So yeah, no Amazon affiliate links or anything on this. Just go search for The Surrender Experiment or The Mind-Made Prison or whatever else if these were of interest to you. I don't need any commission or anything like that. Maybe in the future I'll do stuff like that and put the links on like the YouTube video or something like that. But if you like any of these things, or you got some value out of what I've been doing, I'd really appreciate it if you would follow me if you're not already doing that on here. because I need to hit like 50 followers to become an affiliate on Twitch, and then that gives me access not just to making some money off this, but like I get other cool features for the stream that I can do. So that would be really beneficial and useful for me. Also, join the Discord channel that we have going on. I'm gonna start doing more stuff in there very soon. I've still been in some stages of setting things up for the business as a whole. Like over the weekend, I was making thumbnails for the YouTube videos so that those are a little more branded, and building like templates and stuff like that. I don't want to just post in the Discord and then drop off, for a week or two at a time. Like once I get to that, I want to be more consistent with it, but I kind of have to tackle some things first where I'm still setting some stuff up. But yeah, join the community, follow, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, the shit that everyone says on YouTube. And yeah, I think that just about does it for tonight. So I'm going to sign off. Oberon says goodbye to all of you, as do I, and I will be back tomorrow. Take care, everyone.